This is Season 3 of the Defining Stewardship Podcast, where we explore practical ways to be good stewards, to help you thrive in your finances and more effectively serve God's kingdom. Here is your host, Jeremy Sharp.
Well, welcome to, this is Season 3 now of the Defining Stewardship Podcast.
Yes.
Today, I am here with Grant.
Hello.
Hey, thanks for being here.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Today, we are going to start off this season in a very cliche way.
Because it's the beginning of the year.
It's the beginning of the year, and we're going to talk about goals.
Yes, everybody tries to set goals, resolutions at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing.
You know what's funny about that? There was one of the most trending hashtags of the beginning of, I think it was last year, was the hashtag that had to do with breaking your New Year's resolution. And it was trending like within the first week
Yeah,
of the new year.
goals don't last very long.
No.
No.
People have a hard time with them.
Yep. So we wanted to take a little different approach to this whole thing of setting financial goals for the year. And we just want to let you know up front, this is not the year that you're going to fix everything.
No way.
Nope. Can't do it.
Mm-mm.
It's probably proven.
Yeah, and really, too, if you think about your financial goals, as you said, financial goals when we started this, people who were listening likely thought to themselves like bigger, loftier goals.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And they
Oh,
probably
get
had.
out of debt or save X amount of dollars or whatever.
Yep. This year, I'm going to magically start saving $1,000 a month. And I'm not going to go out to eat. And I'm going to stop buying my morning latte.
Yeah.
Hashtag, you should listen to our.
Ooh, yeah. What podcast episode was that? That was a good episode.
Yeah. Yeah, that was just a throwback.
Mhm.
If you've been a faithful listener of our show.
Yeah, then you know that we do not say.
Yeah. It's impossible to make all of these changes very, very quickly.
Correct.
So, what we want to talk about today is how you make little changes, how you start developing habits, how you start putting processes in place to, over time, make a bigger difference in your finances.
Mm-hmm.
So, Grant, you recently, I think everyone here in the office has really kind of adapted this Michael Hyatt way of doing things.
Yeah.
If you don't know who Michael Hyatt is, he is a productivity junkie.
Yeah.
He has some amazing resources. He's very, very accomplished. He's done a lot of awesome things, but recently he's really shifted more into the productivity world.
Mm-hmm.
And Grant, you recently attended one of his, what was it?
It was a business leadership event.
Mhm.
So I am attracted to his type of leadership and his type of teaching because he is a believer. He has a similar worldview as
Uh-huh.
I do. And I just like the approach that he communicates. He does it with humility, and it's just always super easy to apply, and it's
Yeah.
really great. So, yeah, I was at an event, and there's a bunch of other business leaders all over the country, and we got together, and we created some goals for our business, and he walks you through this framework
Yeah.
of how to create some goals. So yeah, it was really, really awesome, and I loved it.
And so we want to kind of dive into this structure, this way of doing things. And for the reason that a lot of times we'll say this year, we want to have goals.
Mhm.
But we don't even have the habits to start creating those goals. Like we don't have a system in place to be able to help us actually attain the goal.
Correct.
Well, saving $1,000 a month. Well, what are the actual steps that I need to take to be able to get to that point?
Mhm.
So this kind of takes a step back and
Mhm.
looks at the basics of actually creating a goal
Mhm.
and how to get there.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun in this episode to talk through the right way to create a goal,
Mhm.
and then also the steps that you take during the goal creation process
Yep.
to make sure that these financial goals that you guys are going to create for 2020 will actually work.
Yep.
And you'll actually experience some wins. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah. So Grant, we've talked about this a lot here in the office. This is some of the things that you came back with from that time with Michael Hyatt.
Mhm.
And then also these are some of the things that we all do personally when we use his planner, which
Mhm.
we'll talk about a little bit more later on in the podcast.
Mhm.
But this idea of smarter goals, we've heard many times, like have smart goals. He kind of takes that a step further. Smarter goals. Um, the first letter in that acronym S is specific goals. Tell me a little bit about what that means to you and an example of a specific goal.
Yeah, too often, especially if it relates to financial goals, people are going to say something like, I want to save more money.
Yeah.
That's not specific enough. You
Right.
have to say, I want to save $1,000, right? Or you have to say, instead of, I want to get out of debt. No, you have to be more specific. I want to pay off this particular debt.
Yeah.
Right? I want to pay off this car. I want to pay off this credit card or whatever. You have to be specific with a goal.
Yeah, I think about that for one of the big things that we hear a lot is I want to save for my kids' education. Someone's saving $25 a month. So it's not specific because they're just saying they're saving. $25 a month for a kid's education is really not going to do much. So it's kind of a wasted goal. They don't know how much they need to save. They don't know why they need to, like what they're saving for, how much the cost is, all those types of things. And so, they're doing these actions in their head of like, oh, we're saving for kids' education, but really it's not making a difference.
Yeah, and the point of a goal is to move into a particular direction.
Right.
And if you're going to be vague about it, then you're going to be vague in the direction you're going.
Right.
So the more specific you get with the goal, the more specific your direction will be as you move towards where you want to be.
Yeah. Second letter, M. Measurable. Measurable goals. What does that mean?
So again, having a specific number or something that you can see, did I win or did I lose in this goal?
Yeah.
That great example that you said, I want to save for my kids' college education. Well, you want it to be measurable. I want to save X amount of dollars from, I'm currently saving $0 and I want to get to another dollar amount, right?
Right.
Having it be measurable so that you can see the progress
Right.
as you're working towards that goal is a really, really big deal. Measuring, again, makes it specific in the direction, but measuring also allows for progress.
Yeah.
So they can see, man, am I doing this right? Or should I keep doing this?
I think already just 2 steps so far, and the big thing that I see is this just creates momentum.
Totally.
It's a big momentum thing that allows you to start moving.
Which is one of the reasons why people don't set goals or fail in their goals anyways, because they're setting them wrong. There's 0 momentum that they're experiencing from the beginning, and that's why that hashtag was trending, because they didn't do it right. So, oh, shoot, already broke this,
Yep. Next on the letters, we have A for actionable. What does that mean?
So it has to be a real thing that you can take action on. So again, if you've been specific with it, it is measurable. It has to be something that you can move the needle on. Okay. So again, if I'm saving, say, $1,000, all right, well, my actions are putting actual money into a savings account. Those are some actions that I can take to do it. If you're just vague with certain things, or maybe even say things like, I just want to be a better person. Well, the actions to be a better person as that goal, it's just hard to be there.
If your goal is to be a better person, the action would be maybe to start volunteering
Maybe.
at a local charity. That would be the action behind being a better person. Yeah.
So you could say the goal then, to be specific, is I want to start volunteering at then be even more specific, local food bank X number of days
Exactly.
a month. And that's how you would make that measurable. That's how you make it actionable. And that's how you make it specific.
Awesome. R, risky. I think that word has actually changed from the past. What did it used to be?
Yeah, so this smarter framework actually isn't something that Michael Hyatt came up
No,
with.
it's not.
Been around for a while.
Right.
But the way he does it is the R used to be
Realistic.
Realistic,
Yeah,
and he
that
believes
was-
goals should be risky.
Right.
And the reason for that is you need to make sure that there's a challenge that's involved. This actually gets into kind of some social science or behavioral science that we want to become masters of a craft.
Yep.
We want to grow in knowledge and things. And when you add a risk element to the goal, there's a challenge that's involved that helps make it stick a little bit more.
Pushes you a little bit.
It really does.
Yeah.
It really does. And again, if we think about our goals, we're trying to move to a different direction. We need to be pushed forward, and risk is required for that. Look, if you already have $999 in a savings account and you have your goal to save $1,000, it's like, well, what's the point? You
Right.
know? So the risk adds a little bit more of a point to it.
Yeah, it doesn't require any time to change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Next letter T, time, or a timed goal.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me your thoughts on this.
Well, I think one of the bigger things that we do wrong when it comes to creating goals is one, we don't have a time on it, or if we do have a time, we make the time like a year or 5 years or 10 years. Life changes so fast that it's really, really hard for your goal to even be relevant 5 years from now or even a year from now, you know? So having a time on the goal is super important. So again, I want to save $1,000 by April 1st or something like that. Having a time on it makes a little bit more, hey, I'm going to push towards this, but also making sure that the time isn't like way too far out. It's hard to touch it. It's hard to feel it. It's hard to grab that if it's way out there in the future.
What I've found in those situations is that I tend to procrastinate, and then the goal is unattainable because I don't have enough time because I've waited too long because I thought I had the time to begin with.
Yeah, you say, okay, I want to, contribute X amount of dollars to my kids' college fund, this year.
Yeah.
All of a sudden it's October and you've done next to nothing to it, and it's like, oh crap, now what?
Yeah. So think about that. If you want to contribute $1,000 to your savings account in a year's time, a better way to do that might be, I want to save $250 in my account in the next 3 months. And that gives you some immediate wins. And you can really start to build that momentum a lot faster.
Yeah. For me personally, I really don't make annual goals anymore.
Yeah.
I'm basically just focusing on the next 90 days because I can touch that, I can feel that, I can see that, and it's easier for me to like look at this goal on a daily basis and take actions towards it because I know that time horizon is just right there.
I do a little bit different. I look at where I want to be in the next year, and then I say, okay,
divide that by 4.
Yeah, divide that by 4, and that's how I assign my quarterly goals.
Beautiful, love it.
Yeah. Next for the smarter goals, we have exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
If a goal doesn't get you excited, if you cannot imagine who you're going to be or what your life is going to be like when the goal is accomplished and that doesn't excite you, then what's the point?
Man, I know what I would look like if I had about 30 pounds off this. Man.
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady-ish. I don't want to say that I would be royalty, but I would be close.
Yeah, I mean that's the point. A lot of these financial things, we all know if we're a responsible adult, we know and understand that we've got to be saving, we got to be doing these right things with finances. But it's sometimes hard to get excited about certain financial goals because it's just like, man, this is weird. I don't know if I want to do this or I'm uncertain.
Yeah.
But if you write it out in a way that gets you excited about it, that's important. So an example is you write the goal of saying, I want to save X amount of dollars for my kids' college by April 1st so that
they can afford a school that costs this amount.
Right. Or so that they can become, or I can assist them in, or whatever. So adding, instead of just having a little phrase for your goal, it's maybe a sentence or two that get you excited about doing this thing. Because when you're reading these goals throughout the quarter or throughout the year, you want to have that excitement.
Yeah. The last one in this group, these letters R, stands for make sure the goal is relevant. I think of a lot of people that I see like, oh, this year we're not going to use our smartphone. Like, we're not going to do like all these type. We just got a little laugh in here because at the end of the table is our media producer, Dan, who doesn't use a smartphone.
Yeah, he's a flip phone guy.
Yeah.
Shout out to Dan.
Yeah. But they might say like, hey, I run a business and I'm not going to use a smartphone. Like, is that wise? Is that Well, tell me about relevance.
I think there's another word that can help with this R relevance, and that is delusional. A lot of times we might be creating a goal that it's not really realistic. It's not relevant to what our lives are, and it's extremely hard to attain. There's a difference between risky and being relevant in your
Yeah.
goal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to set a goal of like, I want to be a millionaire this year.
Yep.
Like, well, depends on what are your current assets and what is your current income. Is it even realistic or relevant for you to be doing that
Yeah.
based on what else is going on in your life?
Or I want to, someone might say, I want to buy a house this year,
Mhm.
and they're in $100,000 of debt.
Yeah.
Like, it probably isn't going to happen.
Right, exactly. It has to be relevant. One of the ways of doing that, you might think about, okay, I do maybe want to be a millionaire, right? Okay, well, if I want to become a millionaire and build wealth, what are some of the steps that it takes to get there?
Yeah.
Well, maybe one of the goals that's a little bit more relevant now is, hey, look, I don't currently have a relationship with a really great financial advisor. That's more of a realistic goal for me to set right now, so that by the time this quarter ends, I've got this trusted relationship with someone that can help me become a millionaire eventually, right? So it's stuff like that.
Yeah. For these different types of goals that we have, there's a few different types of goals. There's habit goals and achievement goals.
Mhm.
Can you break down the difference between those types?
Totally. So if we've talked about, hey, I want to save $1,000, that is definitely an achievement, right? There's a finish line to it. There is an accomplishment, if you will, and that's an achievement goal. So a habit goal is I want to spend or save X percent of my income every paycheck,
Okay.
right? And that would be a habit to make sure you're doing that every single time, right? Or I want to contribute X amount of dollars to my 401k each paycheck or something like that.
Even simpler, I would like to spend 20 minutes in prayer,
Mm-hmm.
meditation,
Mm-hmm.
in the Bible
Yeah.
every morning.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
even as it pertains to finances, is in a habit, I'm going to make sure every time I walk into work, I have a habit of praying to God, saying, God, this is worship for you. I want to be a habit. I want to make a habit of being mindful worshiper at work, right?
Yeah.
Or when you're giving and tithing, we want to make it a habit as a couple to pray over our tithe every month.
Yeah.
Those are more habit goals, and it's important to delineate between those two, because the habit goals and the achievement goals, you would gamify different. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like you would, if it was a habit goal, you would have like a check mark, and make sure you're doing it every time.
And science actually shows that helps you hit your goals.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. There's like crazy stories when I used to teach Financial Peace University of like people who would like, those like chain paper snakes where
Yep.
you like make a little circle and then staple it and you just make a long one. People would do that in like your grade school or whatever. That was like a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Right? Well, like I would hear stories of parents doing that with their kids about like the debt that they're trying to pay off, that they have this achievement that they're working towards, and they gamify it by like ripping off a little bit until they get to the place where the snake is gone or
Yeah.
whatever, right? And there's different things that you can do to gamify things to make it a lot more fun.
So tonight I'm gonna go home, make a chain snake,
Yes.
hang it up in my bathroom, and then, man, counting down the days till I lose that 30 pounds.
There you go. Every pound.
Every pound,
Rip one off.
rip one off.
Yes.
It's gonna be great.
That's awesome.
How do you gamify an achievement goal?
Yeah. So like, again, you could do something like a snake, but you see them a lot too. Like if somebody's trying to raise money, they have like a whiteboard with like a thermometer or something, and every time they save some money, they fill it in until it's exploding or totally filled up to the top. But it essentially has to break down how you track it.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the big thing too at the end of all of these, like, you have to make sure that you celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge benefit for your next goals. When you actually take time and celebrate the goals that you just achieved, it really helps keep that momentum going for your next goals.
Yeah, I think there are 3 things that you have to do after writing out the goal. After you've done a smarter goal, you've been specific, measurable, actionable, risky, you have a time element in it, you make sure it's exciting, it's relevant. It's really, really important to do 3 things, and one of them is write down what your reward's going to be.
Yeah.
How are you going to celebrate? And if I'm honest with you, Jeremy, I'm terrible at this.
Yeah, me too.
Like I don't like necessarily celebrating myself.
Yeah.
But if I
I
can
feel guilty.
Yeah.
celebrating.
Yeah. But if I can involve someone else,
Mhm.
like, hey, if I achieve this goal or I build this habit, I'm going to go do this thing with my kids or with my wife or with some friends or whatever, if I involve others as part of the celebration, then that helps a lot. And here's the other thing too. If I tell them about the celebration that I'm going to do,
There's a lot more accountability.
oh my gosh, yeah. So that's kind of the thing too. If I don't hit the goal, my kid's like, I thought we were going to be going to Legoland, Dad, and why is that not happening? Well,
Yeah.
your daddy didn't hit the goal. Like there's accountability there.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things to kind of keep at the focus of all of this, though, is really your motivations for the goals. Like having a motivation for each goal is huge. It's shown, research has shown that having a motivation for you is you're more likely to hit your goals. From a biblical perspective, what do we think about motivations behind goals?
Yeah, so I think that there is a ton of wisdom to not just write down a motivation, but multiple motivations based on different life domains, specifically spiritual, right? If we can come up with maybe some key verses, maybe some commands from scripture that are saying this is why we need a goal, it helps give the goal a lot more purpose.
Yeah.
Right? So we can write down some different scriptures and read through those as we read through the goal and look at it on a daily basis. But then also, if we understand we're creating goals to impact various areas of our life, adding as many motivations as possible. Like, sure, we're going to build wealth with finances if we meet this particular goal, but then how does that impact your relationships?
Yeah.
Write that down.
Why are you building wealth to begin with?
Exactly.
What's your motivation behind that?
Yeah. How does that help us make a bigger kingdom impact?
Yeah.
How does that impact your relationship with God?
Yeah.
All these different motivations, these key motivations, try to be as creative as possible and write down as many as possible as you can.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about motivations. We talked about rewards. But then we kind of really get into the practicalities of this.
Yeah.
How do you start actually taking steps?
Yeah, it's really cool if you have this really well done, written, smarter goal. You've followed the framework, but it means nothing if you don't take any steps or actions. So along with writing your key motivations, the last thing that you should be doing is writing down what does it take to make this goal happen? What actual actions do you need to do daily or weekly or monthly to do this? And you just list these things out.
Yeah.
But then after listing all of the actions, there might be 3 of them, it might be 10 steps that you have to take. What you want to do there is you want to circle the easiest ones. Like, what ones could you maybe do right now as you're writing the list?
If you're familiar with the Dave Ramsey way of doing things, it's almost like you're debt snowballing your goals.
Exactly. Yeah. There's this kind of phrase where people say, like, do the hard thing first, eat the frog. Well, no, you want to gain momentum and you want to get some wins with this. So as you're writing down the actions, figure out maybe a hierarchy of which ones are easiest and put those at the top of the list and, like, get those done now. Like, start doing them, because then you can start crossing off those actions as it pertains to that goal. Know that you've got some wins there, and it'll help you to keep pushing forward to really make the goal happen.
Yeah. If you're listening to this and you're like, okay, well, I don't even know, where to start for some of these. It might just be get something to plan with. Get a planner. Write down some ideas. Write down some potential goals. And look through those goals and figure out really what you want to accomplish this year.
Yeah, and as we talked about at the beginning, Michael Hyatt, you've been using his full focus planner for even longer than I have. What's your experience been like using that specific planner?
Yeah, so I've been on and off with it. My best productivity for the year and where I get the most done, but also have the most enjoyable life is when I'm using that. Because I can really focus on work at work, and I can focus on home at home. So my experience with it has been amazing. It has pushed me to be able to do things I didn't think I could do, simply because I didn't take action on things.
Yeah.
I love taking action. I love doing that, but unfortunately, I need a system in place to actually take it. Otherwise, I paralyze myself.
Yeah, and this full focus planner does help you create goals the same way that we've just outlined. And they even have a podcast. If you're really into goals, it's a good podcast. It's just a few minutes long every week, and they talk about how to make goals happen. So I strongly recommend checking both of those out. When we think about financial goals specifically, and we've talked about all kinds of different examples, I think that there's a couple of different things that everybody should be considering as a goal. And it depends on where you're at in your life. But being a more responsible leader in your household, being a more responsible adult with your finances, trying to make the biggest kingdom impact possible,
Yeah.
it's going to require thinking through some stuff that a lot of people know they need, but they haven't done.
Mm-hmm.
Things like life insurance, disability insurance, estate planning. I think those things are really important. And look, this isn't like to just plug stewardship. I don't know where you guys are at in your life as you're listening to this podcast, but the bottom line is you got to have these things in place.
Yeah.
And you really got to have a great relationship with a financial advisor who can help you with some of these financial goals. If you came into a meeting with a financial advisor, I mean, Jeremy, if a customer came to you with some financial goals framed out like this, I mean, how awesome would that be for you?
Yeah, it'd be incredible. The unfortunate part of that is that not a whole lot of people do plan that way.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times there's a lot of holes that people don't even think about.
Mm-hmm.
And so just making sure that you are doing your research,
Mhm.
taking time to figure out what goals should be a priority.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think this has been a lot of fun talking about how to make goals, specifically financial goals,
Yeah.
smarter, right? And then also make sure that we have some celebrations, we have some key motivations, but then we take action on it as well.
Yeah. And then, making sure that we celebrate, making sure that you're rewarding yourself and your family
Mm-hmm.
for your hard work.
Mm-hmm.
That's something to be really, really proud of. So
Yeah.
this year, I'd encourage you, don't go out and just say, hey, I'm going to do all of these things
Mhm.
without a plan to do them.
Mhm.
You could really be setting yourself up for disappointment and failure. I think 92% of people fail New
Mhm.
Year's resolutions.
Yeah, your resolution, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. So make sure that this year, as you're doing that, you have a system in place to make sure that you're successful.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing this wisdom and insight with us today, Grant.
Yeah, it's been fun. Thank you.
See ya.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to the Defining Stewardship Podcast. If you found value in this episode, consider sharing it with your friends to spread the love. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode as we continue to seek wisdom and define stewardship.